Welcome to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times, sponsored by MSA Safety. In this series, we bring you sessions from the Emergency Services Show and the Emergency Tech Show 2025. In a first for the Emergency Tech Show, host Rich Preston is joined on stage by Joy Allen, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Durham. Along with Durham Constabulary DI Andy Phillips, they discuss how this force is using innovative and creative technology solutions to reduce violence against women and girls.
Joy, if you can just talk a bit about your role with the police in Durham and what it is you do with them.
Well, I'm a Police and Crime Commissioner for Durham and Darlington, but PCCs also have some national roles. I'm really pleased. I can see one of my colleagues from Blue Light Commercial. I lead on addictions and substance misuse, road policing, and I chair Blue Light Commercial. And when we talk about efficiencies and effectiveness, that's a real key area that most PCCs are interested in. We're elected every 4 years, and what we are is the voice of the public in policing. So we don't operational. I can't tell the Chief Constable to put 10 officers in my local area, but I can use the surveys and the information and the intelligence to make a case. We also set the budget and we identify where we want that budget to be spent. So technology was one of those key areas that we wanted to get better service to the public, and that's what I wanted to invest in.
Yeah, and we will come on to the technology shortly, but you mentioned you're the voice of the public, and it's the public that's been screaming loud about this, prompting the Labour government and its mission of halving violence against women and girls within the next 10 years. Andy, can you talk us through that? Can you talk us through how the Durham police response to this Labour mission?
Well, it's really important, isn't it? As you say, I mean, domestic abuse is a massive issue across the UK, not just in Durham. So, I mean, I've got some stats. If I can go through perhaps some stats that'll demonstrate how serious this is. It's an issue that predominantly affects women, but men are also affected by domestic abuse. And the stats, just to make sure I get this right, the Crime Survey of England and Wales last year estimated that 2.3 million adults experienced domestic abuse in that particular year. So that was about 5% of the adult population of the UK at that time. And it's estimated that 1 in 4 people at some point in their lifetime will experience domestic abuse, which is quite a number. When you look at the audience here, a quarter of the people sat here at some point in your life will experience domestic abuse. But the big issue, I think, is the underreporting that goes into that. So Safe Lives, who are a national charity that's champion sort of domestic abuse, and their mission statement is to end domestic abuse, they estimate that 1 in 5 victims, which is 80%, will never contact the police to report that abuse that they're suffering. So it's a significant number of people that are not reporting domestic abuse. And sort of my personal experience of that is that when somebody does ring the police, and I've been working in domestic abuse for about 10 years now, they will tell you about that incident they've rang the police for, but then there is a whole history of information that they'll tell you about. And this is people that have rang the police before as well. And quite sadly, sometimes you'll get somebody in their 70s, even their 80s, reporting 50 years of domestic abuse. They've never mentioned it to the police before. So the underreporting of that is a significant issue.
And can I just say, from a PCC point of view, for the people, the delegates here today, just the role a PCC does. So if it's important to the public, it's important to PCCs. This is important to the public. I've invested into a worker from a domestic abuse who works in the control room. This is way before the government's just invested in that. We've been doing this for years because it's the right thing to do. So that's been a real sort of game changer in having that person with that knowledge in there. I've also appointed a victims champion, and because sometimes the experiences of victim, we can learn from it because it's not perfect. So the victims champion works with the victim to find out what worked well what didn't work well, to learn those lessons and to ensure we take on board that feedback and change the way we do things. So really important to have a victim's voice, because PCCs are not only, like obviously commissioners, we are the victims commissioner as well. Commissioner of Victim Services, so that's why this is really important. As we've said, it's underreported at the moment, so to give people the trust and the confidence that they report things in, it'll be taken seriously. We've invested in that training as well, haven't we?
And can I ask on that? Chief constables are under constant pressure. They hear these news lines all the time. We're going to crack down on drugs. We're going to crack down on gangs. We're going to crack down on this. We're going to crack down on that. Andy, this is obviously something that's very important to you as someone who works in the domestic abuse unit. It's obviously very important to you as someone who talks to the victims, talks to the public. Was it hard for you to be waving the flag there and get this on the chief's radar?
I don't think it's difficult because it is such a big problem. You know, so much of what we deal with within the police has a domestic element to it. Yeah. So it's not just that sort of classic domestic violence, if you wanted to talk about that. Domestic abuse is far more widespread than simply the violent side of things. So it takes up such a tremendous amount of policing time. Not only is it such a massive impact on the community and the victims of those crimes, but anything that we can do to solve that, to safeguard people, to allow officers time to be freed up to perhaps deal with other matters as well is something that's probably quite an easy sell to a chief constable. It's just finding those right solutions.
Yeah.
And also police and crime commissioners have to write a plan. That's one of the things that we're obligated to do. But the chief constable, we have to sign off it, so it's a joint plan. And in my plan, we've got safer people, safer places, and there's a whole load of commitments that we want to do to make a difference, and we're both passionate about providing a first-class victim experience. We know there's a way to go, but that's our ambition, of a first-class victim service and preventing crime in the first place. So again, a lot of crime that we know can be prevented, but you need that information and that intelligence to be used in a really clever way to be more efficient and effective in what we do.
And one thing that's related to that is Clare's Law and Sarah's Law, which give police forces a responsibility to share information. Andy, can you talk through, perhaps for people who are unfamiliar, what those are and what requirements they place on you?
Yeah, I mean, Clare's Law is something that I'm very passionate about, and everybody should know about it. And sadly, I think there's a lot of people that still don't know about it. So Clare's Law and Sarah's Law are two disclosure schemes, and they've been in policing for a long, long time now. Both came out of quite tragic circumstances. So Claire Wood was tragically murdered in Manchester in 2009. And at that time, her partner that murdered her had a long history of domestic abuse, but Claire didn't know about that. So after her death, her father campaigned very much to bring about Clare's Law, and it went live, if you like, was rolled out in 2014. So it's been with us for 11 years now. Sarah's Law, very similar. Again, came from a tragic circumstance. I'm sure most people will know the name Sarah Payne, and there's that kind of classic image of Sarah in her red school outfit, blonde-haired girl with a smile. And she was murdered back in 2000, so 25 years ago now. And again, it was her family that campaigned for Sarah's Law, and that was introduced in 2011, so that's been with us for 14 years. So both schemes have been around for a long, long time. And what they allow to happen is for somebody to apply to a local police force to say, in the case of Clare's Law, I'm in a new relationship. Is the person I'm with a risk, a danger? Does the police hold any information that they could share with me that might help me understand what risk this person poses? Sarah's Law, very, very similar, but it's for children. So the typical scenario would be if a couple separates, somebody gets a new partner, they can ask, is this person a danger to my children? And that danger could be through sexual abuse, violence, neglect, but also domestic abuse as well. So the schemes do overlap. So I would encourage anyone to spread the word about Clare's Law and Sarah's Law. Probably very underutilized in certain areas. We tend to find that promotion like this, talking to people, does help. Soap opera, Emmerdale, was it? I think ran a story on Clare's Law a couple of years ago, and that promotes it through that. So yeah, really important schemes designed to make people safe in new relationships, designed to make children safe in new relationships.
And just to be clear, because you're using gender neutral terms, this could be male, female, 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 male, male, doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Anyone
matter.
can ask that.
It doesn't matter at all. And anyone can apply. So it's not, the onus isn't on the person that's involved in that new relationship. So if you've got a friend that enters into a new relationship, you can apply on their behalf. You can apply for your family, your friends, your work colleagues. Anyone can apply for anyone, but the disclosure is only given to the people that actually need that disclosure. So we wouldn't tell you about your friend's new partner's, offending history. We would tell them about it. And the idea is it gives them that information so they can make informed safeguarding decisions.
And I would say these schemes do save lives, but we've all got, an ask, as I said, just to promote that out. But they're only as effective as how good the systems are to get that information out. So the speed, accuracy and accessibility of the information given is really, really important. And that is where technology is a real game changer.
So talk us through that, because police forces are busy places. I'm sure your inbox is always overflowing. If you get 50 emails a day with a name, date of birth and address, like, you just can't cope with that. How does the technology help officers, help police forces deal with this?
I mean, it helps massively. I mean, we would be lost without it, is a reality. So we invested in a new technology with Ubiquity that are here today on the Microsoft stand. And that technology helped us to deal with the applications. Like you say, the volume of work coming in. So to put some sort of figures behind it, if you compare this time this year to last year, the number of applications we deal with has gone up by 80%.
80.
80 in the first 6 months of this year compared to last year. So we haven't invested in any more people. We are still progressing those applications. The thing that's enabled us to actually cope with that 80% rise is the technology that we invested in last year. I think if we hadn't done that, we would really be struggling. So I haven't had to ask for extra staff. It's perhaps something that I maybe need to speak to Joy about after this, but that significant increase, technology has managed that for us and kept us in a really good place, because we have, certainly if you're talking about Claire's law and Sarah's law, we have 28 days to deliver a disclosure.
Yeah.
So we're very much measured on how quickly we can do that. And if you're getting a volume coming in, we deal with about, we're quite a small force, Durham, but we deal with about 200 applications for Claire's law every month and about 50 applications for Sarah's law. So it's a lot of data that you're wading through, and an awful lot can get lost if you haven't got that technology that's going to support the delivery of those schemes.
Yeah.
And I think from Durham's perspective, it's not just working with somebody who can supply it, it's working with organisations that have the same values as we do, and also willingness to work with us to co-design something that's very Durham in our work. And so I think it has to be flexible and doing those things. So having that knowledge of the sector is really important. But really, these are people's lives. And what you can do is make a massive difference. In fact, you can save lives. But we have to do it together, bring that expertise together, and that partnership is very powerful because it's having a massive impact and making the change that we absolutely need.
Joy, as that interface between the public and the police, we kind of have to address the elephant in the room here. Violence against women and girls is an important topic. It's particularly sensitive for the police because one of the most high-profile cases in the last few years has been violence against a young woman committed by a serving police officer. Does that, when you're speaking to women in particular who are the victims of violence, does that still create problems for them in their approach to the police?
I think it means it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, whether you're male or female. We need victims to come forward because that response is there. If the response isn't up to standard, then obviously that case in particular has had a massive change across, not just in where it occurred, but all forces across England and Wales. So that microscope is on in relation to the vetting procedures, the report procedures. We've even got with reporting people anonymously, so they don't even have to come through the force like a Crime Stoppers, where people can put that information in. And then what we need is some of those, a similar thing, that you have those complaints investigated in a timely manner. But the confidence has to be there that people complain, it's dealt with, and it's addressed. And then not all the time, victims, unfortunately, when they go to court, sometimes it's getting them to court.
Yeah.
It's a long process. So there's a lot of work that we have to do in the criminal justice sector. There's a lot of work we could do with technology to make those cases, the backlogs that we've got isn't good for victims. So the work that I do in relation to victims, Commissioner, is supporting victims throughout that time, and it could be years for them to go to court. So the confidence is there. High profile cases do shine a light on some of the unsavoury elements and the people who shouldn't be in the police force to start with. But then we have to have the confidence that we can root those people out and hold, we don't want those people in the force as well. But also encouraging people to join the force. But mainly for me, it's that confidence for the victims to come forward, that they'll be heard, they'll be trusted, and they'll have the confidence in policing.
And Andy, what's your team doing to try and continually reassure people who, as you were saying earlier, might have been going through a pattern of abuse for years, decades, and have only just plucked up the courage to call the police, and then there's a man answers the phone, or they just, they see a uniform behind the front desk?
Yeah, it's really important that the officers that from that very, very first contact with the police have a real understanding of domestic abuse. And we invest an awful lot of time in training. We work with a lot of external bodies. We've mentioned Safe Lives already. So there's a national domestic abuse matters program that's been rolled out across the whole country. Durham's just gone through that process. So it's investing in training the officers to understand what domestic abuse is about. In Durham, we work very closely with the Alice Ruggles Trust. So Alice, probably because Alice was from the Newcastle area, so a northeast girl, tragically murdered. An awful lot of these things come out of tragedy, don't they? But again, Alice's family very much champions the trust that's been formed in her name. So she was stalked by a boyfriend at the time that went on and murdered her. And nobody at the time saw that coming, but perhaps looking back at what had happened, questions were raised. Well, could somebody have seen that? And could that have been prevented? So that's very much what Alice's family and her father in particular do now. And Durham Police have got a very good relationship with the father. He will regularly come into the force to talk to officers about his experience. So it's about understanding the sort of the controlling and coercive nature of domestic abuse. That's the framework where violence happens. It doesn't necessarily start with that violence. It's that manipulative behaviour by somebody, that almost grooming of somebody to allow domestic abuse to happen, and for the victim to feel as though they almost can't report that. And once you can understand that, and getting the cops to understand that is really important, it hopefully allows you to break that cycle. So there's an awful lot of training is the first thing that we will do to raise that awareness. We have the champions in the control room. So right from the very start, there's somebody there that can offer that help and support to the call handlers, can offer help and support to the first responders. The big thing with this is that we have to believe our victims. And once upon a time, perhaps we weren't as good as that, as I hope we are now.
Can I just say that one of the things we regularly meet with the local judge in our area, and one of his asks to me was early prevention, education, prevention, because he was seeing people young, in the court, that's been responsible for that. So working with Alice Ruggles Trust, we've been doing the education in the schools, which I think is really, really important. You start early, understanding about relationships. What might seem as, it could be seen as love, but it's actually obsessive behaviour, and having people to understand that and to see it. So friends see it, a bit like the Claire's Law and Sarah's Law. People have that training so they understand what it is and what coercive control is. Another one we've had, we've used VR, another technology, again came from a judge, about coercive control in the family court and to see behind the scenes. We're trying to get this out nationally, but very, very high-tech innovation. But it came from the judges, and sometimes judges do get a bad rapport, don't they? They think, oh, they're in little bubbles, but actually they see things and they want to prevent things, and they have the idea to problem solve. And thankfully, you know, this one judge in our area give it to all the PCC. So not just me, Northumbria, Cleveland supported the VR project. So I think it's really important that prevention is better than the cure and the response, because we don't want the victims there in the first place.
Yeah. I want to come on to investment in a moment, but first, prevention is better than cure, but sometimes, unfortunately, prevention can't happen. You were touching on earlier, Andy, you know, this is a very human interaction here. We're at the emergency tech show, but actually at the heart of this are people, and it needs that human interaction. But sometimes the tech can help. Now, when I was in the police, I spent a brief period of time with our domestic abuse unit, and where we had a victim of domestic abuse, the best we could do them, because this was pre-smartphones, pre-iPhones, etc., we gave them a red button on a pendant that was connected to their landline that they could press if they needed, that sent a call to our control. And that was the best the technology could do. Where are we at now? What can we do to support people using technology who are the victims in abusive relationships?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of technology out there. I mean, the things you're talking about now, they still exist, but they've probably evolved an awful lot. So you get apps on phones, and apps that are they're there that anyone can see, but they perhaps look like something else, so that they are a point of being able to press a button on your phone that will actually contact straight away the local police force. It'll tell whoever answers that call, if you like, at the other end, what it's all about. So there is kind of a predetermined response to that button being pressed. So technology has advanced massively in terms of that. We do a lot of other things within the force within Durham. I mean, certainly the Police Crime Commissioner sponsored sort of Ring doorbells. So we give a lot of Ring doorbells now out to victims of crime, which is quite a simple thing to do. But having that technology on your front of your door that will video, links back into the police, provides that reassurance, but captures evidence as well. So technology can be used in a raft of ways to support people and to make them feel safe within their own home, which is what this is about.
Yeah, technology can also be the curse. Sometimes it can be via technology that some victims are harassed, stalked, abused. How do you tackle those issues? Because that's a whole different layer of forensic investigation there.
It is, and a lot of that we look to some of the big tech companies, don't we, to help with that. You know, the likes of Facebook. There's an awful lot of talk at the minute about, when we're stepping aside maybe from domestic violence slightly, but around social media and how people use it and how people talk on social media. But it features massively in terms of domestic abuse. So we have specialist digital teams that'll work within the police to help capture that, because capturing that information and that evidence isn't always easy. So certainly within the police, as well as the domestic abuse specialists, we have specialists within our IT departments that will help us to gather that type of evidence to use that for prosecutions.
This episode of the Emergency Services Times podcast is sponsored by MSA Safety, proudly supporting emergency services and first responders on the front line. At MSA Safety, protecting first responders isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We work closely with fire and rescue services across the UK to develop and deliver safety solutions designed to meet your ever-evolving needs. That includes MSA Bristol Firefighter PPE, trusted by services across the UK and beyond, shaped through years of collaboration with frontline teams. It also includes our growing investment in innovation and technology, from the connected M1 SCBA modular solution to our agile, fully managed service model that helps keep crews protected and ready to respond. But for us, safety goes beyond equipment. We believe in standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who dedicate their lives to protecting others, whether it's supporting firefighter charities, backing mental health initiatives, or showing up for community events. MSA is proud to be part of the Emergency Services family. To learn more about our work in the UK and how we're supporting first responders every step of the way, visit www.msasafety.com. With MSA Safety, when you go in, we go in with you.
Joy, you recently helped make a big investment, £1.5 million, I think. Talk us through what prompted that and what it's gone to do.
As I say, every year and throughout the year, we consult on what the public want. The public wanted more accessible, reliable to report into the control room. There was a demand on that control room. I think that's another issue where there's calls come into the control room because there's nowhere else to phone. And so there might not be police, there might not be 999 or 101 calls, there might be a call for other assistance. But it's understanding when people are in that queue at the time, they want an instant response. So we've used that to look at the chat online. We now can report online, invest in the switchboard, because obviously there's things, those calls not going through to block the ways up. We've also invested in Salesforce, which is an absolutely, from a victim point of view, lots of potential, and I think more forces are coming online with that. And I think part of it is understanding where the technology is to do those innovations that can now, I think we're one of the best in the country for the 999 calls. It's getting those times down. You've got the stats, you know where you are in the league table or not. And from a PCC, you want to be the best, one of the best performing in the country. Sometimes it's challenging because we are a small force, and sometimes there is technology that there's a delay before but it still counts. And so we found out that when we did look at the league table, I think there was a 5-second delay from our side. So that's sort of being picked up. But I think for me, it's understanding that the investment is in relation to what the public want, to make it easier, accessible, more convenient to report crime. You can now, obviously, you can upload CCTV, where I used to get complaints where I've got the CCTV, nobody's been to pick it up. Well, now it's all done. We can use that for dangerous drivers, and now we've used it for dangerous parking. So if people are parking dangerously, which children can be knocked over if they're parking illegally, to do those things as well. So that information, that CCTV can be uploaded as well, but we do need the software enabled for that to be accessed. So the solutions often come from the force and the people at the operational level. I can help the assistants around adopting the problem-solving approach. So I know when it comes to me, it's being looked at, it's analysed, they understand what it is they want to do, how they're going to evaluate it, and how we're going to measure success. But for me, it's that public. How do the public feel? What do we need to do? And we haven't even mentioned drones. I've been here for I've seen loads of drones around here. I'm like, wow. That is fantastic for the off-road bikes. That is a real tool. Our officers love it to be the pilots. But where you do get technology, you do have to invest in training. Technology needs parts and needs to be repaired. So it's all right buying the kit, but then you have to have the investment behind it to make sure that I invest in the force and I invest in our officers to give the public the best response.
You mentioned earlier measuring success. When it comes to tackling violence against women and girls, as the PCC, how do you measure success?
I think for me, we're obviously getting this victim satisfaction. That's sort of coming in, understanding how the VCOP improves. So victim satisfaction is really, really important. I would say we know. I think we said at the outset, it's only the tip of the iceberg that's reporting. So for me, success would be I would get a lot more reports coming in to give a true extent of the crime, the victims out there. So then it causes an issue in response. But actually, that's what we want, because all those perpetrators that aren't being reported, those offenders that are continuing to abuse women and girls, aren't being addressed. So that to me would be a success, that that your figures go up, but it's how we respond to that, and then measuring how we keep them supported throughout the criminal justice process to get to court. That is really difficult when we're talking 2 years. That's a long time for people to be held on. When you see a victim's journey, you think it's a straight line, but in my plan, it's very much like a windy road. And if people see the challenge of that at the outset, it's a bit more realistic. If this is your journey, but every step along the way, I want to support them. But if people drop out. We want to know why and put the measures in place to make sure that we get cases to court and we don't lose the justice for the victims.
Yeah. Andy, it's interesting that Joy mentions wanting to see the numbers go up, because most chief constables want to see the crime numbers go down. But with a crime and a pattern of behaviour which prompts people to not report it in the first place, are you of the same mindset? Do you want to see those numbers go up?
Yes and no, I suppose. What I would like to happen is for it to stop. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, isn't it, of everyone? So if we can get to a stage where we can stop domestic abuse, then the numbers obviously don't go up. But I guess the point that Joy's making is that we know there's that massive unheard group of people out there that are suffering domestic abuse. It's something that happens behind a closed door, and we have to do what we can to encourage them. If the right thing for them to do is to report that to the police, to report it to the police so there can be that safeguarding and that support put in place. If we can't encourage them to support it to the police, it's looking at other ways that you can actually just try and eradicate it, isn't it, to stop it happening. So it's when we talk about 80% of domestic violence is not reported, you know, the point Joy's making is let's get that 80% dealt with. And if that means that numbers do go up, then that is a positive thing. But I suppose the goal overall is to stop it.
To not need your team in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
Joy, you mentioned you're a small force. How closely are you working with, talking to other forces about this topic?
I think this is an ideal opportunity to do that. What we do, and I know we've talked to Ubiquity as well, it's where forces coming forward. We always in Durham have that open door to share the learning. I think that's a key area that and we also look at other areas that's doing really great work as well. But if we've got some best practice, we want to share it, we promote it. We work with the College of Policing to get it in there. We work with the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners to get it out there. So it's very much about selling the benefits. When you talk to the people who've benefited from it, and I think that sort of sells itself. But sometimes if you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So these are great opportunities for us to share our learning and hopefully share the benefits across the other police forces as well.
Andy, as the DI in the domestic abuse unit, aside from your regular intelligence sharing with colleagues in other forces, how often do you get round the table with them and have a conversation about what each of you is doing?
Quite regularly, we certainly talk very closely with our local forces. You know, the people don't respect borders in the way that police forces have them. So we talk very closely with, certainly in Durham, with Cleveland and Northumbria, because a lot of the offending that goes on, somebody might live in one force area and travel to a different force area. You have relationships that cross force areas. You have a nighttime economy where people from Durham might go out in Newcastle or people from Newcastle in Durham. So there is a lot of conversations between the forces locally in terms of domestic abuse and how we can deal with this. Sharing of practices. I'll regularly meet with counterparts where we can share ideas and practices. But then to go beyond that, obviously, events like this. I mean, I came down here yesterday and I think I spoke to people from probably about 3 or 4 different police forces, talking about what we're doing, what they're doing, swapping ideas. So yeah, events like this are great for doing that as well.
Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask either Joy or Andy?
So my name is DC Detective Gemma Follows. I'm from West Midlands Police. Myself and my colleague are digital media investigators, and we work currently in public protection on the adult investigation unit. So that's namely in domestic assaults and abuse against women and girls. I was just wondering whether you can provide any specific examples of any technology that's either using at the minute or are considering that aims to reduce violence against women and girls outside of a domestic situation. So public place violence, anything to keep women and girls safe when they're out and about. Because we hear all the time about domestic abuse, but violence against women and girls is a bigger thing than that. It's a bigger issue than what goes on within the home. I'm sure every woman in this room can say that they've experienced some sort of violence or sexual harassment when out and about, and that's something that's often overlooked, I think, in policing. So, yeah, any examples of tech that you're considering to address that issue?
Great question. Andy, violence, Gem is absolutely right. violence against women and girls. It's not just in the home. It's not just in relationships. It's harassment on public transport. It's being followed home from work by a colleague who you've already pushed away. What tools are out there? What have you seen that can help address that?
I mean, we've certainly invested in CCTV is the classic one, isn't it? So there's been a tremendous investment in CCTV and CCTV control rooms, which is a technology side of things. Aside from that, we've developed in Durham safe hubs. So we have hubs that people can go to on a night out. So it's not necessarily technology, but it's places that are staffed in the hub of that nighttime economy that will allow people to go to for a place of refuge, if you like. Perhaps if somebody's had a little bit too much to drink, can go into there, and there are people within there that they can talk to. So it's a kind of a bit of a sanctuary that's stepping away from probably technology. The main one out and about, I would say, that we've dealt with has probably been CCTV and a heavy investment in CCTV within the city centre of Durham.
Sorry, go on, Joy.
Now, I was just going to say another thing that's really helpful, and it goes back to the public as well, understanding that fear. And I know in Durham we had a call it out survey. I'm sure West Midlands, it's understanding where people feel safe, where they don't feel safe, and encouraging people to let us know where they don't feel safe. So it may be, sometimes it's environmental, sometimes it's light, sometimes there's something about that area, but if we don't know, we can't invest in it. Sometimes it could be quite simple, but sometimes, there's the things of if it comes from those public, out in the public space, I think the surveys are great. And where you have got universities, I would really encourage people to use the students as part of I know I'm working with somebody who's in his last year of criminology and saying, can you revisit the Call It Out survey? Where you've got mayors as well, and I know you have in West Midlands, there's some opportunities there, because I know in Durham, the North East, they're looking at the public transport and the safety on public transport. And have we seen recently, it's quite horrific, some of the videos that you see in the buses and in the trains. But how do you feel being unsafe? So it does link back to CCTV, but it also links to the apps as well. There's a lot of apps out there that we encourage, like the Holly Guard or things that when people are going out and they're feeling unsafe, what they should do. And we've got the body worn cameras as well, where more sort of the security are using that, and we're training. I think we're using the last phase of Safer Streets, where we were doing a lot of the work around that, and that links to the spiking as well. And I saw that firsthand, where they'd had the training, they'd got the video, they brought a lady to one of our safe hubs, and she thought she'd been spiked. Well, I know sometimes, has she been spiked or not? It was a birthday, and she spent 2 hours in not a very warm hub, and she had been... she had cocaine and drugs in her drink. So she tested positive, and then she said, "I'm driving tomorrow for the." I said, "No, you cannot drive because you'll test. You'll be founded." But if we didn't do that partnership approach, so officers can do so much, but we need to be working with the public partners and the public to really design out crime and to protect people and to keep them safe.
But just to pick up on the point made there, when someone, say someone does get home safely, but they've had a bit of an unpleasant journey home because they've been followed or been treated poorly on public transport, and they decide to report this, the reality is you go to an online form, you fill in all the boxes, you fill in the bus number, you fill in the route, whatever, but there's no way to flag that this was, a potential incident of violence against women and girls. You describe the incident, and when this lands in the police inbox, it's a relatively, quote unquote, low level harassment case on public transport. It's not going to immediately result in the CCTV being seized. It's not immediately going to result in, say, your team taking a look at it. Should police forces be giving people that option in the same way that we do when we ask people, do you think there was a racial element in this crime? Do you think there was a domestic element in this crime?
I think we would pick that up. I mean, again, that's why we have this domestic violence worker that works within our control room. So it's somebody that can identify these issues. So I think we're much better at identifying domestic abuse now than perhaps we once were. I mean, we are better doing it now than we were. So I think those things would be picked up now, and I think responded to in a much different way to the way that they were once upon a time. It is an issue that needs to be dealt with sensitively. It needs to be dealt with quickly. It needs to have that professional approach to it. So I think we're probably much better than we were.
Hi there. My name's Lisa Arnold. I'm head of public sector at Ubiquity. We've obviously worked very closely together, and I'd like to say as well, from our perspective, we work with 10 UK police forces, and I think Durham are very innovative in their approach around technology and solving problems. So I guess my question's for you, Andy, to understand. We've obviously done some work together, created some success stories around Clare's Law, Serious Law, Marek. But blue sky thinking, I guess, next big thing, if you could imagine a world where you could bring technology in, what would you look to in the future to make a real difference?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing we need to step up to initially, and we're starting to go down this, is an automation and a research automation, really, so that at a press of a button, you can put somebody's name in and it pulls everything from all of the databases that we have together as quickly as that. So that speeds things up tremendously. AI is the big thing that everyone is now talking about, and it's almost using that to. I was talking to Joy on the way in. It's like the Matrix, isn't it? It's predicting where that next crime's going to happen. But there's so much data that's now stored within police databases. It's tremendous, and the challenge for us, and I guess for you guys, and I'm looking to you, Lisa, the tech people, is helping us get that data out of our systems to be able to use it, to be able to see where there are spikes in certain things. What is that spike around? Where is it happening? Why might it be happening? And you're almost then trying to predict what's going to happen next, isn't it? So it's very sort of futuristic. But I suppose baby steps, the next big thing certainly for Durham is to try and automate an awful lot more of our processes, and particularly around the research, which takes up so much time.
And Joy, what would you like to see the technology doing next?
I think part of it, what I hear a lot is data sharing between agencies. And I can always remember, I think it was Nick Tilley, somebody said years ago, it was all in the name, and it should have been data sharing officer, not data protection officer, because if you get that title, people are protecting the data, and I think the sharing part should come first. Because I've seen where we've had the Families Project, and in a family, you could have 20 agencies working with that family individually. Whereas if you looked at the family as an issue, you could work together. Rather than, you've got, it could be truancy, it could be domestic abuse, it could be ADHD, it could be antisocial behaviour. All these people could be knocking on one person's door, not joined up. So for me, I would love us to say we are looking at the individual. So you might have 10 or 20 people worked with you. How could we do that better to get a better outcome from yourself, but also a better outcome, better value from the public agencies? So if we had, if one, like, so that sharing of all that data, that would be then we'd be able to problem solve much better, because we get a better tailored solution to your specific needs and understand the demand that you're on the organisations, but to help you, because if that person has 10 people knocking on the door, how are you going to get anything done? Where I saw it with the Families Project, you had one key worker that understood where you needed to be, what appointments you were going to do. And that's for very, very chaotic, that sort of high demand area where we talked about prolific offenders, that small percentage of people that's responsible for a majority of crime and harm. If we could focus on there, that would be really fantastic and a real game changer in relation to reducing crime and preventing victimisation.
Hello, my name's Faye Nichols. I'm a level 5 student at Milton Keynes College studying public services. Just going back to the Clare's Law, are you able to clarify at which point an offender registers on that service? Do they have to have been arrested and then go any further? Or because personally, I know from circumstances that people have been arrested and then that case has gone to an NFA on a domestic assault, and that's not flagged up.
Yeah. So the scheme will allow a police force to disclose any information they hold that suggests somebody is a risk. So the easiest information to disclose is a conviction, because you're almost safe in doing that, because that somebody has gone to court, it's been tested, hasn't it, and they've been convicted. But you can share arrest information, you can share investigation information that hasn't resulted in a conviction, but it has to be dealt with a lot more carefully, because you would need to look at why that perhaps was the case. So clearly, if you look at a scenario where something was investigated and there was evidence that suggested it hadn't happened in the way that somebody said it had, clearly there will be dangers in disclosing that. But just because something is no further action and doesn't get to court doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, or there isn't something there that needs to be disclosed. The disclosure scheme is quite tight as well. So you are disclosing to the person that needs that information, and you are telling them that the information is there to make themselves safe. You're not giving them something that they can put all over kind of social media to discredit someone. And if they went down that road, they would actually be potentially committing offences themselves. So it's about, when you give that disclosure, making sure the information you give is accurate, but also explaining to the person why you're giving it to them and what they can and what maybe is more importantly, they cannot do with that information.
Hi, my name's David Civil. I'm a policy officer at the IOPC. We know that forces across the country maybe aren't dealing with that influx of disclosures as well as Durham are. I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about what the technology allows you to do or helps you do. You know, is there an AI component in there, for example? Is it helping in those situations that you just explained there, where there might be questions about whether you can disclose or not? Is it giving you any indication of whether you could or should in those circumstances, or is there sort of always a human in the loop of those sort of decisions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very much for us at the minute, it is still a human that's making those decisions. And I guess the next step for us would be to go back to Ubiquity again. And I know that they can automate a lot of what we do. I spoke to a force yesterday, I forget who it was now, that within their criminal justice system, they have kind of an AI decision maker that you feed in the information that this person's been arrested for this, they've said this in interview, this is their age, this is the offence, and it will spit out at the end the disposal outcome. So it'll say, we would recommend that you give this person a caution, and there's the rationale behind it. And I guess you could apply a similar thing with this, that if you fed that technology into a bot that kind of looked at it and decided, right, we're safe in disclosing this, not so safe in disclosing that, that would kind of be the next step in the evolution of it. But yeah, at the minute we are still very much police and police staff decision makers. The technology that we used for the app that Ubiquity helped us with was to pull together spreadsheets and Word documents and to build a bespoke case management system. So it's a system that manages our Clare's Law. It'll flag up when they're hitting or getting close to that 28-day deadline. It'll allow me to see who's working on what stage it's at. So it very much just manages the process. The next step is to manage what happens within that process to help, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. We are out of time, unfortunately, but I do want to get a final thought from you, Joy. This mission to halve violence against women and girls in 10 years. You meet Andy regularly, you meet with the chief. Are you on track? Are you happy with how things are going?
I think we've obviously we're going to look at the strategy, absolutely 100% committed. I think we've got a fantastic team. I think what we need is in giving that reassurance to victims, but also the prevention messages and also the justice side. I think that needs to be a lot more rapid and more effective. So the investment needs to be not just in policing, but in the justice side to give the confidence of women to come forward and for us to really eradicate violence against women and girls.
Please do join me in thanking Joy and Andy.
Thanks for listening. Remember that by taking time to learn from our speakers, you can earn CPD points from our partner CPDme. So do check out the link in the show notes. Our thanks to MSA Safety for their continued support for our podcast and to Smart Digital for producing this series. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to For Every Response. the podcast from Emergency Services Times.